Hello, and welcome to the Online Advisors Hour. My name is Rosie Salt-Crockford, and I'm the Regional Surveyor for the South East region.
And I'm Lucy Charman, Rural Advisor.
Thank you for joining us. We are going to take you through a bit of an update session, national policy updates, filter that down to the South East region, and then move on to your counties. And at the end, we'll do some events and reminders. National policy. In terms of public rights of way, there is a 2031 deadline now to map historic public rights of way. This date had previously been taken away, but further to lots of lobbying, it's been reinstated. We are aware that there are some really long wait times for certain areas to deal with rights of way matters, be that an upgrade from footpath to bridleway or a diversion, or even just dealing with sort of section 31(6) deposits. And so we are currently seeking some information via FOIs as to the wait times in various counties. Next, we wanted to update you on the land use framework consultation that has been ongoing in London. It will help to define what goes where going forward in terms of, which land should be protected as being the best for food production, what land is suitable for development in terms of housing, commercial development, infrastructure, and what land should be protected for the environment. The little diagram that's on your screen talks you through all the different work streams and projects that are feeding into and interlinked with each other. So although it feels like we're in a bit of a muddle at the minute, hopefully once all of these things have been bottomed out, it will all interlink in a sensible way, she says. Next, we want to touch on the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, which is another consultation that our London team is currently responding to. The Planning and Infrastructure Bill is streamlining nationally significant infrastructure projects and also looking to unblock current development that is being held up by matters which can't easily be rectified, such as nutrient neutrality offsetting. The way it's proposing that this happens is via developers paying into a nature restoration fund levy, essentially, which would help Natural England to then find sites to do offsetting work on, and it would be funded that way. It would be completely separate to, currently we think, biodiversity net gain. And we do have some concerns around that. In terms of compulsory purchase, we've also responded to a Law Commission consultation, which was concerning the ability for parish councils to ask local authorities to purchase land for strategic housing reasons without any hope value due on it. Moving on to tax. Obviously, the inheritance tax matter rolls on, and we're very much seeing it as a marathon, not a sprint. There are currently around 70 backbench MPs who are lending us their ear, and with awareness that they are likely to be a one-term MP only, we're hoping that they will be a bit more willing to put their necks on the line and help us with this cause. Next, Lucy will take us through a rural crime update.
So we've received good news recently regarding a little bit of support for rural crime. So there was just over 800,000 dedicated to across the two teams, so the National Rural Crime Unit and the National Rural Wildlife Crime Unit, both receiving around about 400,000 to support the cause. So the National Rural Crime Unit looks to ensure there's joined up thinking for cross-force operations and deliver training on a national basis for all forces, specialising in rural. So that's the first element of funding that they've received, which is great that it's on the radar, on the government radar, to deliver some rural crime funding, and similarly for the wildlife crime unit. So it will support some of the good work that's being done. It is quite a way short of what's needed in terms of resourcing, but it does show there's some will within the government to support rural crime, or the prevention of rural crime.
I'm going to touch on EPCs, MEs and renters' rights, but it really is just a touch because there is already on our website a webinar by Avril Roberts, who is our London lead on all things energy performance and minimum energy efficiency standards. So if this is of concern to you, I would urge you to watch that webinar. Equally, we have a webinar coming up by Harry Flanagan, who is our in-house residential tenancy solicitor, and she will talk you through everything Renters' Rights Bill. But in short, with regards MEs and EPCs, there is yet another consultation ongoing, which Avril is replying to, and this is proposing a new trigger event for when EPCs are required. So as well as on sales, transfers and lettings, once the EPC certificate itself expires, you would then be obliged to get another one. They currently last 10 years, but they may only last 5 going forward. In addition to that, there's a £3,000 cost cap currently, whereby if you spend £3,000 trying to improve the energy efficiency, you can then self-exempt afterwards if it still doesn't meet the standard. But it will be £15,000 potentially going forward, along with other bits and bobs. Moving on then to the Renters' Rights Bill. This removes Section 21 no-fault eviction notices, and it's currently working its way through the House of Lords with a view to getting royal assent in due course. There are grounds upon which you can remove a tenant, which Harry has worked very hard lobbying on. So if you have an incoming agricultural worker, for example, then you can evict a tenant to ensure that there is a house available for that worker. In addition to that, there are so many more changes to the law around renting residential property to private tenants, and so I would urge you to book on, if you are a landlord, book on to Harry's webinar and find out more, because as Harry put it to us, it's no longer a game for amateurs. You've got to have your head in the game, because if you get it wrong, the penalties are getting pretty serious. So that's just a roundup of the consultation responses, the big ones: energy performance certificates, planning and infrastructure, law commission, land use framework, but there have been others as well, such as around drones and some forestry ones, I think.
Hair coursing. All sorts. Moving on to an update on where we are with the ELMS schemes. Obviously, we're aware that SFI has been stopped, is on pause. Shocking news, and something that has brought all of the industry together, given the distrust that it's placed in the industry. I'm not going to major on that just now, but I'm going to move on to some of the positives. So firstly, we have heard that there will be some increased payment rates for the higher level stewardship. That will apply to all existing agreements. Is obviously welcome news. Higher tier is currently available on an invite only basis, and we're hoping, or certainly the discussions have been, that will open out to more general applications later in the summer. Advice would be to ensure that you are engaging with Natural England early. So even if the window is not open to apply, to actually start thinking about the application and putting those authorisations in place with Natural England. Capital grants disappeared a while ago now. That scheme has been revamped We're still waiting for the final version, and we're expecting it to be open, I would imagine, somewhere around the spending review when budgets have been set. But again, a revised scheme probably looking like spending cap limits, for boundaries or water, etc., similarly to those we had back in sort of 2019, 2020, and perhaps limits to the applications per year rather than multiple applications being allowed during the year, just a single application per SBI per year. But again, all details still very dependent, still waiting for clarification. Landscape recovery continues to roll on, expecting that to continue given the scale and the delivery that we should see from the projects that we've seen being successful in rounds 1 and 2. Great news for all protected landscape land managers, with farming and protected landscapes being extended for a further year with additional funding. So do get in contact with your FIPL teams if you have any projects that will suit, because there is more budget available, and obviously the spending window is closing with only 11 months left now. Farming Equipment Technology Fund, again, we're expecting a new round of that this spring, I would imagine, and this is just my personal thoughts, that it will be a very similar scheme to before, with a full list that you can pick and choose from, but we wait to see the detail on that. And then expanding animal health and welfare pathway with different visits supported. There's a couple of bigger schemes, bigger grants, but very specific grants opened just in the last 2 weeks through the Farming Innovation Programme. So there's a precision breeding fund and a low emissions farming fund. The details on the slide, I'm not going to read it out to you, but very specific for horticulture and also for low emission farming. There's a couple of webinars and an in-person event with links on the slide. So worth looking at if you are innovative and looking for some project work to be funded. And similarly with the Adopt, which is trialling on farm demonstration to improve climate resilience or sustainability productivity for net zero farming. So funds available both as a facilitator, so you can apply to engage an external facilitator to support an application, or for the project itself. So some good support there for very different areas of the industry. SFI, if we were working this in a workshop as opposed to a webinar, we'd be really interested to hear any thoughts that you have on SFI and what it may look like going forward. Obviously, it's on pause and we just don't know what it's going to look like at the moment. But if any of you have any ideas on your thoughts on how that SFI should be restructured to ensure that the delivery through SFI is optimized, then we'd be really interested to hear some feedback. So please do get in contact with myself. You can speak to Rosie, but she'd probably prefer it if you contacted me. So do get in touch so that we can try and pull some more information together for the working groups that my colleagues attend with DEFRA.
South East regional updates. There we now have wild beaver release applications across the Isle of Wight, Surrey, Hampshire and Sussex. I mean, Lucy does lead on that. She loves everything nature related. So if she wants to add anything in at this point, you're welcome. Yeah, just I'm aware of expressions of interest that are being created for Isle of Wight, Surrey, and Sussex. If there's any more around the region that we're not aware of, then please do let us know. Obviously, CLA is supportive of wild beavers and species reintroduction with adequate support and management. So there are lots of very interesting conversations going on. There should be a national beaver strategy document coming out, which I've just heard about today. So watch this space. If you are interested, please do get in contact. Going on to planning then, following the government's ambitious target to build lots of houses by the end of their term, lots of local authorities will be reviewing their local plans to see where these extra houses, if there's any extra that they need to deliver, can go. In addition, I've just remembered that the Planning Infrastructure Bill also talks about increased planning fees. So bear that in mind if you have a project in the back of your mind that you're looking at progressing. Obviously, increased planning fees, considering how expensive it can already be to get planning through, isn't great. However, if those increased fees mean that actually planning officers and planning teams in local authorities are better resourced and able to turn around cases in a more timely manner, then potentially that's a good thing. Turning to sort of regional consultations as opposed to national ones, Lucy and I each liaise with various national landscapes, formerly AONBs, and a lot of them have either or are in the process of or are about to review their management plans. So we've done a little summary of that for you on the slide. Moving to infrastructure, the Rampion 2 offshore wind farm has been given the green light by the Secretary of State. We are aware of a number of members who are affected by that, and if anyone who watches this is but hasn't been in touch, then do let us know. We're keen to sort of keep an eye on how things progress there, especially with the change of developer agent. Want to see if communications and engagement has improved any. Also aware of the other infrastructure matters that are on the screen, but if you are affected by anything which isn't on there, then do get in contact with me, because I would like to know about it and how you're affected and how you are finding the engagement and consultation.
Yeah, rural crime, just moving on to rural crime, just suffice to say that we are in regular communications with each of the forces across the South East, meeting regularly with Thames Valley, Kent, Surrey, Sussex and Hampshire. There is just sort of a heads up in terms of cross-border working. So all of our forces are involved in CPARC, which is a South East Police Against Rural Crime action group, which the local commanders, the rural commanders, have regular meetings to ensure that there's good cross-force working and joint operations, joint intelligence to try and drive down rural crime across the region. And that sits outside of our region as well. So quite often there'll be joint operations from Hampshire to Dorset, Somerset, Wiltshire, etc. So if anyone is dealing with or has issue with anything relating to rural crime, please contact me over that. And finally on this slide, as a region, we also welcome our new membership relationship manager, Daniel Pownell, who joins us, who I'm sure some of you may have spoken to already, and if not, you will definitely speak to in the future. Just by way of sort of general funding, general grants, before we go into county specifics, there are quite a number of water specific grants relating available from the Environment Agency. Obviously, Hampshire in the region, there's a lot of water related items in Hampshire with the Chalk Partnership Fund available. The re-memory will be applicable to any seagrass or salt marsh restoration projects along our coastline. So there is funding available. It's quite specific. So if anyone is interested in talking about any of those grants that are available for restoration or water improvement, water quality work, then please get in contact and I can share some more details. We'll move quickly in through some county updates. They all follow the same format, so we will leave it on the slide. There are links on the slide to the majority of the information that you might need, so you can click through with the PDF that we'll make sure is available for you to download. Both Rosie and I look after the counties across the region and have been intrinsic involved in the LNRS creation for each of the counties. So we keep a watching brief and attend steering groups on behalf of members with the Local Nature Recovery Strategy. So Hampshire are expecting to open their public consultation in May, and the Isle of Wight are awaiting publication. So they've had their draft passed and they're awaiting for it to be published. I would say local nature recovery strategies have been sort of 2.5 years of intensive project groups and involvement engagement. But this is the time more than any that all landowners should be getting involved. Until recently, we had been under the illusion that they would really identify opportunities for nature and not really have any material considerations in terms of planning, other than to benefit the landowner involved with an improved statutory multiplier for biodiversity net gain. However, more and more we're under the impression, and this hasn't been confirmed, but we're under the impression that there may be some spatial prioritisation for grant funding, and there may be some further regard needed for local nature recovery strategy when it comes to planning. And therefore it could add either additional consideration or further restriction, dare I say it, when it comes to planning. So do engage. If your land is in, then do consider whether that statutory multiplier is beneficial, or if you are unhappy with your land being mapped. I probably, unless you want to add anything else, I probably won't hammer on about local nature recovery.
No, I'm good with that.
Okay. Moving on to grants. Across all of these slides, all the counties, there is the Rural England Prosperity Fund. We've seen it back in its latest iteration. So we had 2 years, which was due to finish, and we've just been allocated some more funding through the UK Sheds Prosperity Fund. So you can see the breakdown. Not every district, borough, county, depending on what level it was deemed, has received funding, but everyone that had it last time will have a little allocation this time. So do get in contact. The links should all work with your local economic development board, and apply for funding if you've got a project that is suitable. They all have slightly different themes, so do get in contact with them and make sure that your project meets their brief. And then there are lots of other grants available, especially through the water companies, some of them quite similar to those that you might have received through SFI, and then lots of conservation grants available. Really keen, I suppose, to hear about member concerns for devolution, especially for someone like Hampshire or Sussex, who are prioritised in that first round. And then for Hampshire specifically, there are a couple of police meetings, rural police meetings, which you can see the posters for below.
Gosh, lots of rep for Surrey, Sussex and Kent.
Yeah, there's a lot of breakdown. Do keep an eye, especially in Kent, because they need a little push in Kent to make sure that they spend it correctly.
Well, the Kent and Medway LNRS public consultation is probably finished, and they have extended their sort of timeline for completing it and publishing it, because they really are putting in the effort to make sure that this LNRS that they're coming up with is the best it can possibly be. So if you're in Kent and you haven't engaged, I would be surprised, because their engagement has been spectacular in terms of, the amount of events and things that they've run. Then do look up their website and have a look into that. In terms of rural crime, I had a member inquiry come through a month or so ago from someone concerned about rural crime in their area and asking, what the police were doing. So off the back of that, I spoke with the rural police task force in Kent, and off the back of that, they've very kindly written 2 new blogs for us. One on sort of general work they're doing in tackling rural crime in Kent and their work at the Port of Dover. And then the second one is specific to livestock worrying. So I'd encourage you to have a read of those if you haven't already.
And in terms of grants, REP, we've touched on FIPL, obviously, for quite a few of the national landscapes and national park for the region. And then there are a couple of specific nature restoration, Horsham, the Wild Sussex Fund, and High Weald Nature and Community Fund. Lots of things going on, as you would imagine, with the designated landscapes, with various plans being adopted, as Rosie alluded to earlier. Devolution again in Sussex. So accelerated devolution. So again, contact us if there are concerns. But I think I'm hoping it's an opportunity to consolidate contact points, to be quite honest, and and hopefully only have a couple of conversations about raising rural on the agenda as opposed to.
Yes, I'd like to agree with that, but I did speak with quite a few rural planners earlier, and they said their experience of dealing with unitary authorities from a planning perspective is that they're very slow, clunky beasts. So not great.
Let's cross our fingers, everybody. It's going to be a long process. In addition, grant-wise, Forest Commission have what I think would be a really interesting conference for anyone thinking about environmental funding. So there is an environmental funding conference on the 12th of May, looking at focused fundraising, some really good keynote speakers. So might be worth anyone interested in sort of that nature funding to book a place there. There's a link at the bottom. Parks and Ox, a similar picture, really.
Yeah, LNRSs are either just completed their public consultation, and so they are assimilating those comments, and Oxfordshire is awaiting publication. Engagement, I would say Kent, out of my counties of Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire, Berkshire and Kent has been the best in terms of engagement with farmers and landowners, although the others have tried. But it's been very difficult to sell it to busy landowners because, why should people get involved?
It wasn't clear. Engaged out, aren't they?
Yeah, it wasn't clear from the outset what importance, if any, the LNRS might have. It certainly wasn't made to sound that important from the outset. So, yeah,
now's the time.
In terms of rural crime, we have regular meetings with Thames Valley Police, who are really proactive in terms of rural crime matters, and they have a great team there. And they're also proactive in meeting with CLA, NFU, and other major landowners to talk around how best to do the inheritance tax protests in order to remain on the right side of the law and things. So we rate Thames Valley Police, they're great. And devolution, there's none down for accelerated devolution. But again, if you have any concerns, worries, or intel on this, then our ears are open. On to advice case studies, we just thought we'd share some of the things that people contact us to ask about. We would like more people to contact us for advice. It's nice to keep us busy. So the type of inquiries we get on planning, agricultural occupancy condition restrictions, when you might need planning for a temporary structure, compulsory purchase, concern from members about local authorities taking their land with no hope value, the SFI closure and capital grants, information with regards business rates and holiday lets that haven't been let out for enough nights to qualify for business rates, and so they're getting council tax bills with second home charges on them. And then tenancy matters, preparing for the renters' rights bill, and I'm currently getting quite a few questions around agricultural tenancy matters.
It's a wide range, but we'd love to hear from you with any advice query. It's part of your membership, so do take advantage of it. We'd like to hear from you, and if we don't know, somebody in the organisation will know. Just a couple of things to put on the radar. We are, as usual, entering into a nice busy event season. There is a Rural Professionals Conference on the 6th of May. There's still space. Please do come and see us. I think we're in Maidenhead, so good central location across the region. So please do book onto that. Couple of our
covering quite a few really good topics that day. We're doing planning, infrastructure, tax, solar,
energy,
energy, land use, environmental matters, and there's a pizza lunch.
Yeah, important.
We're really bigging it up because we want to fill the room. It would be nice.
It would be nice to have a few more faces that we know. As usual, our county committee annual general meetings will go ahead across every county. We kick off with Oxfordshire joining with our Southwest team in with Gloucestershire. So we're at the Cotswold Wildlife Park on the 12th of June. There's still space. Even if it's not your county, please come along because it's a lovely zoo, my favourite zoo. But you'll learn all about the estate behind the scenes. Buckinghamshire AGM is at Ascot Estate on the 18th of June. Again, everyone's welcome. Just please do book on so that we know numbers. There's a really interesting event on with the CLA, the Southwest team. So that's best practices for forestry at Longley. Anyone think we've got a zoo thing going on this year?
Oh, yeah. All about the wildlife.
All about the wildlife.
2020 to 25 year of wildlife.
Yeah, wildlife parks. And then it's Safari Park. And then
we need something at Woburn. Oh, that's not a patch.
South of England show is sort of one of our big events of the year with a very busy day with breakfasts and lunches. It's normally a very busy local agricultural show, so do join us there. And our keynote speaker at that one is Managing Director of Goodwood. Yes, Chief Executive of Goodwood. What's his title? I don't know what his title is, but Goodwood, multifaceted estate, big house, horses, cars, airplanes, farms. Yeah, it's all going on. Very interesting. And then a couple of really good national webinars to put in your diary. So the film industry from CLA Cymru, how to make it in the film industry. And then renters' rights, which I know Rosie spoke about earlier. Really important. Only do it if you're going to be a professional because there's too many loopholes and rabbit holes to fall down. So definitely join that if you have any kind of residential tenancies that you are responsible for. I just want to remind you all the ways that you can access CLA information. We have a monthly land and business magazine full of a range of articles. We've got online on our website a succession hub, an agricultural transition hub, a rural crime hub, and a natural capital hub, and we're hoping to have an infrastructure hub on there too soon. There's a whole host of guidance notes that you can download for free. There's also a range of handbooks which you can purchase through the website. We have free webinar recordings that you can access and listen to at any time, along with some pre-recorded podcasts are on there. We can offer you advice over the phone, over email, however you want to do it. We conduct CLA member visits if you have something in particular that you want to talk about with someone on site. We continue lobbying on your behalf and share some updates on our work via our political WhatsApp, which if you don't receive it, I would urge you to sign up for it because it's via WhatsApp, but you don't get alerts every time someone sees it and people can't respond. They can just do a like or something, but you're not going to get like 200 notifications on your mobile. Don't worry about that. And we only send out anything on that sort of once every couple of weeks, probably, unless something major is happening, like a budget or, people moving around or somebody making a dreadful mistake on budgeting for SFI. Yes. Yes. And then at the very bottom, Lucy and I, in order to try and get to know our South East members a bit better, recorded a little podcast as a trial. We've had a whole 48 people listen so far, and I think 2 of those or 3 of those have given us feedback. So if you're watching this and you have listened to the podcast, which do you prefer? Do you want something like this? Do you want a podcast? If you haven't listened to the podcast, but you've watched this, maybe have a listen, see how you think. You prefer to have information delivered to you. And
yeah, if you've got any ideas for future podcasts, or if you think, actually, no, I'm podcasted out because there's so many out there, then let us know.
Just finish off by saying thank you very much for taking the time to watch/listen. All of our contact details are on the slide in front of you, and so please just do get in touch. Phone us on our mobiles, send us an email with a general overview of the kind of information you're looking for, and we can certainly try to assist. But thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you. Bye.